Today we're talking risk-taking, consistency, and just what an audio engineer does. It's coming up right now.
You are now listening to the Music Business Dreams podcast, brought to you by KDMR Music.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Brandon. I'm the host of the Music Business Dreams podcast, and I want to welcome you to episode 6. Today we're talking to Brian Kidd. He's a mix engineer based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and we're talking about how he got his start, why it's important to hire a mix engineer in 2018, and what tips he has for you to be successful in your career. But before we talk to Brian, I want to say thank you to everyone who made episode 5 with Stolen Drums such a huge success. It was great. It's been our biggest episode to date, and that means we're growing week over week. I can't do it without you guys. If you guys are enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes, and leave us a review, leave us a comment, leave us a rating. All of it helps to help other people see the podcast each week. So I'm thankful to you guys, and let's make it great. Let's make it great. So without further ado, I want to get into the interview with Brian. This was an amazing conversation, and I know you guys are going to learn a lot from it. So without further ado, here we go. So today on the Music Business Dreams podcast, we're talking to mix engineer Brian Kidd. Now, he's worked with everyone from Chasing to Cashe to Jered Sanders and one of my personal favorites, Pat Jr. So we're going to learn from him, hear his story, and the tips he has for success in the music business. So without further ado, welcome to the Music Business Dreams podcast, Mr. Brian Kidd. Thanks for joining us today, man.
I appreciate that, sir. Definitely do.
Oh, no problem. So, for those who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Of course, my name is Brian Kidd. I started off in engineering probably like 8 years ago. Went to school for it in Wilson, North Carolina, at Barton College. Studied audio recording technology. From there, while I was still in school, linked up with rapper and who I also call my OG, Cashe, from Durham. But he's originally from Wilson too, so linked up with him, and from then on, it's been going up and up. Basically he started my mixing career. So, but youngest of 4, originally from born in Detroit, originally from Hampton, Virginia. So dad is a pastor, so music has been, especially gospel music has been all throughout, my life, throughout the house and everything like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So you kind of covered my first 3 questions, but I'll ask again. So where are you from?
I'm originally from, born in Detroit, originally from Hampton, Virginia. So grew up most of my life in Hampton.
So how was it growing up in Hampton?
Oh man, I loved it. I miss it sometimes too. So when I was probably, I say like 5 years old, we moved from Detroit, either 4 or 5 years old, then moved down to Hampton, Virginia. And like I said, my dad was a pastor, so he moved down there, and he started pastoring at a church, so my mom became the choir director for a few of the choirs there. So, of course, music was playing all throughout the house, gospel and hip-hop and R&B and everything from my older brothers and sisters when I was younger. So I loved every bit of it growing up in Hampton. Great place to live when I'm, trying to raise a family. But I say afterwards, I say it'll be good to like maybe a place to retire. But everything else, yeah.
That's typically how it is with all these places in the South. That's how I feel about Raleigh, but Raleigh's on the come up right now.
Of course. I love it. I love Raleigh, so yeah.
So growing up, the son of a preacher, was hip-hop banned in your house like it was in mine?
I'm gonna say this because when I tell a lot of people that I was a PK, people are like, oh really? Oh, so your parents are strict. So I look at them like, why does that that certain connotation come with that? So, but it wasn't. It wasn't really banned like that. Like my parents didn't want it in the house, but of course, I would say I would still be listening to it because of my older brothers and sisters. Because it's a nice age gap between me and my siblings. So it's 10 years, 8 years, and 7 years. So I always would be with them. Like, and they'd be listening to the radio or CDs, anything. And sometimes when I'm in the house, like the first album I remember listening to when I was in the house, I would sneak and listen to it. And I know my mom was going to hear this and that. So, like, I used to sneak and listen to, like, West Side Connections, like, I think it was their first album. I used to just sneak and hide the CD under the bed and just listen to that back and forth. So that was definitely like my first, introduction. But yeah, it was a little here and there. My parents didn't want it in the house, of course, while we were growing up. So, but I mean, other than that, I wouldn't say it wasn't banned, but it was some ways me and my brothers and sisters would get around it.
Right. So you were always a music lover. What drew you to the engineering process?
That's a great question. I always tell people this story. When I used to live in Savannah, Georgia too, so after living in Hampton and we moved to Savannah and then we moved back to Hampton, I was introduced to this group, Little Brother, of course. I know a lot of people remember Little Brother out of Raleigh, Durham area. So I heard of them. I think I was listening to a Kanye Consequence mix. It was a Consequence mixtape. And they had a song called I See Now, which was produced by Knife Wonder. I was like, oh, man, this group is great. And looked up their album to listen to it, and that changed me forever. Like, I was like, I don't know. I know I want to do music, but I don't know what I want to do. So I tried my hand at making beats. Didn't work out. I don't think I had the patience like I do for engineering. So when I looked up other descriptions of like music jobs and everything, I looked up engineering because I always wanted to play the background because I'm a private person anyway, so I don't mind playing that background. But when I looked that up, I was like, you know what? I did like playing with Legos, so breaking things down, building them back up. Let me try this thing. But engineering, mixing, and finally getting into mastering and all that.
Okay. So for those who aren't as familiar, could you explain what a mix engineer does?
Sure. For people who don't know, like, of course, when you go into a studio, you will get your, you set up studio time for recording, of course. So once that engineer records your vocals, instrumentation, anything, that you need recorded, of course, it's not ready or prepared to be put out on the radio. So mixing engineers are the ones that, make sure they're radio ready, cleaned up, make sure your voice isn't muffled, that snare hits right, or that kick, anything that's in the instrumentation can be heard and has their own separate space. So we make sure that, those frequencies of voice for the artists are, very audible, when it comes to the consumers and everything like that. So we're almost the second to last stage before it gets to the consumers. Then, of course, it goes to mastering.
Okay, and then what's mastering?
And with mastering is making sure that, of course, the levels are good for the radio. Because when the mix engineer does his thing, we're just here to get the basically all the I would say like the ambient sounds and everything clear. And sometimes it may not be up to the certain levels. So what the mastering engineer does is making sure that everything is not really loud, but I would say everything is heard through the radio speakers, through everything, making sure that everything hits like it's supposed to hit in your car, in your headphones, in your earbuds, everything like that.
Okay. So sounds like the mix engineer kind of helps to provide the clarity, make sure that everything that needs to be heard can be heard. And then the mastering engineer will sort of test that out in different mediums and boost things that need to be boosted so that you can hear everything that's important to a track and what gives it life, no matter what you're listening to it on.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So, and this is kind of a question for later, but I'll go ahead and ask now because we're in this age where, anyone can record themselves in their house, right? Like I'm in my house right now recording this podcast pretty much on the same setup anyone would use to record themselves for like a mixtape or an album or something, right? So you can record yourself, you can mix yourself or not mix yourself, and you can be up on SoundCloud, in the next 30 minutes. So when that's the case, how important is this extra step of sending your tracks over to a mix engineer?
I say it's very important. Because sometimes I know I was talking to one person the other day who hit me up through an email. He was like, I released the album last year, but the only thing that people said that was wrong with it was it wasn't mixed properly. So my voice was underneath. It felt like the snare was taking over the track or the kick was taking over the track, and they could barely hear my voice. So nowadays it's important, but also I'm gonna tell the truth, it's kind of not as important as it used to be, just because the consumers just want the music. But for me, I always tell people, anything that you put out, you want it to be quality.
Right.
Because, like, for example, with, the late rapper XX-Tentacion, he put out probably one of his biggest records, I think it was last year before last, called Look at Me. And to me, that was probably one of the worst, I don't think it even was mixed songs, but it still, got his point across, and it's probably one of his biggest records of his career, but it was not mixed at all. And he just threw it, I think, on SoundCloud, YouTube, and it just took off. Right. But I say it is important just because of that certain fact, because some consumers may not care, but others will. Like, they'll be like, hey, like, I didn't hear what you said right here, this line, like, or I wish I could have heard that kick a lot more when I had I have a system in my car. I wanted that to hit harder, like a lot more. So that's where, we come in a lot, especially, for those people who with the old school cars and who got the systems in their trunk and everything like that. So.
Right. And see, I've been doing music related things for so long. I've got a pair of M-Audio BX8s. So whenever I really want to listen to music, I'm either listening in my car or I'm listening on those speakers. And you can really tell the difference between a good mix and a bad mix when you're listening on something like that, right? But, for example, right now I'm doing this interview just using the Apple EarPods. And it's like, I can't necessarily tell the differences as much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what I tell artists is, you always want to put your best foot forward because anything you do has the potential to go viral. Right. And so having a good mix, it just sets you apart from everyone else. It's not going to necessarily, if you don't have fans, you having a well-mixed song isn't going to matter. Right. Because no one's going to hear it anyway. But let's say your song goes viral and then the other dude from down the street, he puts his song in the comment section or something. And so people are seeing yours and then seeing his. So now in comparison, you can tell, okay, this one song sounds really good, real professional, it's really clean. And the other just sounds like somebody recorded it in their basement. And that could get you points over someone who's not as professional. So I think the engineering process is still very important.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Okay. So you told a little bit about how you got started, but so from going to, okay, I'm interested in engineering, this seems like a cool behind-the-scenes job, can you kind of detail the steps you took forward to make that happen and kind of how you got to where you are now?
Oh, yeah, of course. Like I was explaining earlier, I think it was my second to last semester in at Barton College, and I know we had a project we had to do, like a senior project, and we had to reach out to somebody or to record like a few songs for a senior project. So the thing I did, I went on Twitter. I started a Twitter account in April 2010. And like I said, I reached out to K Hill, and how I heard of K Hill, I heard of him back in 2005 on Knife Wonder's The Dream Merchant Volume 1 album. And he was the very first track up there, and I became a fan of his, like, instantly. So, like I said, back in 2010, when I reached out to him on Twitter, I was like, hey, I'm a fan of yours. I go to Barton College. I just wanted to link up with you. So we linked, talked, sat down, everything. Chopped it up in the studio at the school studio and recorded him for a few things. And from then on, he basically took me under his wing. Like anything that he had going on, like he would be like, hey, I got this young engineer. I think I should give him a chance. And also during that time, I would still, hit up other rappers or singers and everything on Twitter too, because one thing I let people know is like, hey, if you see an artist that has their, email, in their bio, it's up there for a reason. So definitely if it's somebody you want to work with, hit them up, just shoot that shot. So that's what I was doing. Like I call it the LL Cool J approach, because I remember I read an interview of his, like he said back in the 80s, he would send his demo to every record label building, because I think at the time the record labels had their mailing address. He would send his demo to every label. So when at the time when I saw the email addresses of people I wanted to work with or I was a fan of, I'd be like, hey, I'm a fan of yours. Would love to, make some of your stuff. Hit me back. Some would be successful, some not so successful, but it definitely opened a lot of doors for me. Doing that definitely led me to the homie Chasing Cashe too. Definitely did that. So it got me started with a lot of things.
Cool. So you set up a Twitter account, and just whatever artist you could find that you were a fan of or you were interested in working with, if they had an email address, you just shot that shot?
That's all I did.
Nice.
That's all I did.
So how did you learn the craft of engineering? Was that something that started with Cahill, or had you been studying that prior to?
When I was in school, and I was studying audio recording technology, that gave me my foundation. So I had a great teacher, professor back then too, Phil Valera. He was a great professor. So that gave me my foundation with everything, like the projects that we had to do and everything like that. But then, of course, when I graduated in 2011, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I just going to, trial and error it and just learn for myself, or am I just going to, give it up and, go back home with this 9 to 5? So I stayed, after I graduated, I stayed in Wilson, North Carolina, and just grinded it out and just studied more and more engineering with the help of K Hill. He was like, hey, this is what I do when I record my vocals, or mix my vocals, this is what I do. I do this with the compressor, EQ, and everything else. Okay. So, and sometimes I'll be up to 4 or 5 in the morning, okay, so he had it like this. Or it's a lot of trial and error type stuff. So I learned a whole lot more, after school too, after I graduated. So, but definitely K Hill was a huge, huge, huge help, and still is to this day, with my career and everything like that, as far as engineering, studying the craft and everything.
That's what's up, man. So you went to school for recording engineering. Would you recommend that for people who are starting out? Because now I know you can learn a lot of stuff on YouTube and websites like Skillshare and Lynda and stuff like that. But do you find value in a centralized recording program where it's like, okay, here's the curriculum, here's a studio to practice at, and here's some projects for you to do so that you can measure how your skills are improving. Do you find that the school experience is still important, or would you just recommend someone just jump on YouTube to learn?
I say it all depends on the person. Like, for me, I think it helped out a lot. It just built that foundation of what I didn't know at the time, because, like I said, back then, I really didn't know what I want to do with music when I started after I graduated high school. I was like, okay, is it going to be production or anything? And when I was looking up schools for music, Barton College popped up for the audio recording program. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try this. Like, at that time, it wasn't, YouTube was out, of course, but it wasn't as many as recording, mixing, mastering tutorials out online like it is now today.
Right.
But I would say it all depends on the person. I know it did help me out. It built my foundation. It made me more interested in going further into that the aspect of that career. So but nowadays I see a lot of people too just like you said, just going online, just watching tutorials, because I have a lot of artists who are friends of mine. They mix their own stuff too as well. And sometimes they'll ask me questions and everything, but their mixes sound good too as well. So they'll be like, "Hey man, how does this sound?" I'll tweak this, and this, but right now it sounds pretty good. He was like, "Yeah, I learned tips and tutorials from YouTube, or just from reading one of my favorite books for mixing and all that is I hope I say his last name right. I always butcher it. Bobby Ozwinski. I read a lot of his books and everything. I learn a lot from his books. He breaks it down to the simplest terms. But I would definitely say it just depends on that person. It definitely does. It helped me build that foundation, and just to see if I really wanted to do it before I went that full 4 years into college to finish that. So I say, if anything, if you want to try it, try it for a semester or two, to see if this is really what you wanted to go through, and if not, take a step back and just see what happens.
Right. Okay. So you said you read books by Bobby Owsinski. Was there anyone else, or were there any other engineers who you kind of looked up to when you were getting your start?
Oh, of course. When I was even when I was younger, I loved how the snare would hit on the Tribe Called Quest albums, and the man behind that was an engineer named Bob Power. Definitely one in my top 5 engineers of all time, and definitely Bob Power. I would say Manny Marroquin does a lot of stuff out in LA. There's a lot of Beyonce stuff. For everybody, just about. As far as I even go to this Crisis from Jamla Records. Even when I was listening to Little Brother, I know he was doing a lot of their mixing too. If I'm not mistaken, he was doing some of their mixing and all that. So Crisis, he's an influence on mine. Like I said, when that got me my start with listening to Little Brother. I'm trying to think of who else I would say, but definitely Manny Marroquin and Bob Power for those two, and also DJ Quick. I'd say that's probably number 1 in my book. Number 1. DJ Quick. If anybody knows me, I love West Coast music. Like I said, that full album, my first album I listened to was West Side Connection, so that built that foundation for West Coast music. So DJ Quick is my favorite rapper, producer, engineer, all time.
Nice. What was it about? What is it about Quick's sound that just kind of captivates you?
Oh man, I would say his just the ability of his like instrumentation. Like, he was not a regular hip hop producer at all. I was just listening to one of his he used to have one of these like interludes on each and every one of his albums called Quick's Groove. And like sometimes they'll be like real G-funk influence, that others would be like real jazzy. But I know it was, I think it was Quick's Groove 3 and Quick's Groove 7. They really stood out to me. Like, I was like, oh, this guy is amazing. Like, as a rapper, he's amazing. But as an engineer and a producer, it's like top level. Like, his albums, Safe and Sound and Rhythmalism is probably like some of the greatest like sounding records ever. Even at the time they came out, which was in I think Rhythmalism was in '98, I want to say. And I know Safe and Sound, that album came out a couple of years earlier. I want to say '95, '96, but just his sound, that crispiness almost to his engineering and everything. It's just like, I was blown away at that. Like, from then on, everything he does, I watch. Everything he makes. So.
Okay. So, when an artist wants to work with you, what's the process?
If an artist wants to work with me, definitely the first thing I let them know is email. Like, sometimes, like, they'll find my Twitter handle or Instagram, Facebook, and I always let them know, hey, hit up the email. Let's talk. We'll talk details and everything and go from there. Or if I meet them out in person, like at a show or something like that, I'll tell them, hey, hit the email, everything. We can just go from there. So yeah, that's the first step.
Okay. And then from there, they'll send you tracks and you'll mix them and send them back?
Yeah. From there, I always tell people to send the stems and everything, and we just go from there, making sure that everything is good on there, and for them to send to me. Then I always ask them, what do you want it to sound like? Like, what is your idea for this record to sound like? So yeah, we just go from there.
So they'll send you a reference track, or they'll just say, I wanted to sound kind of dreamy or kind of like this song, and then they'll send you said stems. So let's talk about stems versus like a 2-track. Could you explain for the listeners what the difference is and why one's important versus the other?
Okay. So this can definitely help with like the clarity of a record. So sometimes you'll get a artist who say, yeah, I have the 2 tracks. And what a 2-track is, more than likely they're talking about the beat or the instrumentation for the song. So what a 2-track is basically a file with all the instrumentation just in basically one MP3, one WAV file. That's in stereo, basically left and right. So that's 2 tracks. And they would send that to me, and it's nothing much that you can do because everything is already bounced down, and you can't work on the instrumentation like probably by itself, other versus having stems. And with the stems, that means everything is tracked out. So I have the snare, the kick file by itself, I have the hi-hat by itself, I have the horns, whatever is in that instrumentation. Each file is separate from each other versus the stems just being one file with everything on it. Right. And that can definitely help with with the clarity of a record too, as well, with the movement and like textures and depth of songs too. Right. So yeah, that's definitely you will want the stems. You would definitely want the stems because it makes more room for everything to stand out a whole lot more, especially with the vocals. And I know sometimes I'll get 2 tracks, and I'll let people know, hey, if you can't get the stems, I only can do so much because of what the producer did on this 2-track beat. Like, I can't go into an individual track and lower this frequency and everything like that. But between those two, I would definitely stems is the way to go.
Okay. So for the artists out there, on episode 4, we had Concept Beats, and he talked about how he kind of pioneered the premium lease, where, in beat leasing or, buying beats online, you have the option to lease it, which typically will just give you access to just the wave. It's not tracked out separately. And then if you buy the exclusive or if you buy a premium lease, then you get the full track out. So you get stems. And so that's why artists, it's important that, you at least do that premium lease so that you have the option to get the stems. So then when you send the file to your engineer, if the snare is conflicting with your voice because of your specific vocal tone, then they can turn that down, or they can tune that frequency and really make you sound, just as good as your favorite artists and stuff you listen to on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Cool. So your mixing process, when you sit down at the board, what do you do first?
The first thing I do first, when I get the files through my email, I check to make sure if they have a reference first. And basically what a reference is they'll send me their like the demo of the song they sent me, just like a basis of how it sounds at the moment and everything before the mix happens. Or sometimes they'll send me like maybe a quick mix, like, hey, I want to keep these elements in here, but just do your thing after you keep those elements. But first I would listen to, if they have a reference, I would listen to that. And I will open Pro Tools and just import all the files and just make sure everything that needs to be stereo, everything that needs to be mono is mono. And then, like I said, I'll just listen to the song once or twice just to get a feel to, to see, what the artist was trying to convey, as far as emotions, anything like that. And then also, if, like I said, if they sent me like, hey, I want it to sound like this Kendrick Lamar song or something like that, you see how his voice was on this song, then I'll go listen to it a few times, walk around the room a few times just to get a feel of like how certain frequencies hit as far as the instrumentation and voices, and then I'll go from there and just start playing with the beat, the instrumentation first, and then from there I go to the vocals and I make sure everything fits. It has its own pocket, and and just go from there and make sure everything is glued together.
Nice. Okay. So I want to go into a bit of a lightning round here.
Okay.
So I've got some this or that questions, but we'll get into it. So Slate or UAD?
Man. Ooh. I say UAD. UAD. Slate is great plugins. But I'll say UAD just because of the sound and everything that they bring out. And I love their products and everything, so definitely UAD.
Okay. So when you're mixing, EQ first or compression first?
Depends on the voice, but mostly I do EQ first, and that's because I'm doing like I'm taking out certain elements out of the voice or the instrumentation. Like I'll subtract a lot of stuff, certain aspects of the sound, and then I'll do compression.
Okay. Pro Tools or Logic?
Pro Tools. Started in Pro Tools, especially when I went to school. That's basically the industry standard. Mm-hmm. But Logic is definitely my backup than my other workstation is Studio One, but definitely Pro Tools. That's number one.
Okay. Your top 5 mixing plugins.
Ooh. Fat Filter Pro Q. Waves SSL. I'll include them as a whole because, I'll say that the Waves SSL E channel. I'll say the E channel. Let's see, that's 2. I'll say the Waves RVox. That's in almost all of my, everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, two more. I'll say the stock EQ in Pro Tools. I use that when I'm subtracting a lot of frequencies that I don't like. They got a pretty good stock EQ. And I say the 5th is probably the Fat Filter, the compressor. I say Fat Filter is top of the line plugins. I see a lot of people going to that, and I tried it out firsthand, and I just got those maybe a month ago. So it's something amazing. So yeah.
What is it that makes the Fab Filter so amazing?
I say with the analyzer that they have, the little spectrum analyzer that they have, and just the way that it brings out certain aspects of vocals and instrumentation and everything like that. It's this is one of my favorite ones. It's real surgical too, with certain frequencies. So it's amazing. It's really good. Both of those plugins, compressor and EQ.
Okay, cool. And then your top 5 pieces of gear.
Could I say the ones that I have or the ones that I wish I had?
Whichever is fine with me.
Whichever. All right. I would say pieces of gear. I would say the Yamahas, the monitors, the CS7s. I just got these. Changed my mixing, as far as just a flat frequency that you want when listening to music and everything like that. But I say the Yamahas, I would say the PreSonus, the monitor station. This has helped me. I was switching between back and forth between my monitors. The warm audio compressor. It's really good. And I say the 2 that I do want. I say I want the. I've been seeing a lot of people use these. It's the APIs, the Lunchbox EQs, and the other one is I want to just get this the 11 rack, the Avid 11 rack. I just want to have that in my studio for when guitar players come in. So I've been looking at that for a while too. But everything else is I've been eyeing a lot of gear. So those are the ones I've just been that's been helping me progress. The ones I've just been looking at that'll elevate some stuff that I want to do.
Okay. So for people who are starting out, for upcoming engineers, do you feel like it takes a lot of gear, or what setup did you use starting out?
Oh, no, definitely not. It doesn't take a lot of gear because I do a lot of stuff, as people say, in the box. And what that means is inside the computer. So I have a lot of plugins in Pro Tools that I just use. So it's a lot of people are starting to do that because there's so many plugins that replicate some of the the analog gear so well that a lot of people have stopped using some gear altogether. But definitely, I say I use a lot of stuff, a lot of my plugins and everything in the box.
Okay. So if there's any one piece of advice that you would give to an upcoming engineer, what would it be?
Take risks. definitely take risks because I know, like I said, when I graduated, even when I graduated college, it was either, hey, go back to Hampton, work this 9 to 5, or, just stay and try to work with Cashe and try to figure everything out. Because at the time when I graduated, I was only making I had a part-time job making $7.35 an hour working at Books A Million. Yeah, so I was like, all right, so I either can, like I said, go back home or stay here and make it work. Of course, it was some broke nights, just working and everything like that. But yeah, definitely just take risks. I did not want to play the safe route with this. I was like, hey, this is what I really want to do, so I'm gonna make this move. It's going to happen. So that's the number one thing I say, especially in the music business, is to take risks.
Okay. And so with that risk, are you able to do mixing full time now, or are you still supplementing it?
I'm right there, about to do it full time. I am still working a 9 to 5, but primarily it's primarily for the benefits, with the health insurance and everything like that. Because right now I'm making more than what I do at my regular job. So hopefully that transition will happen really soon. I could just fall back on this, from now on.
Dope.
I will say one thing. One of the homies that I mix for, he was like, "Hey man, keep that job as long as you can." He was like, because you don't want to go out here and of course just quit and then you have nothing to fall back on if something were to happen. So he told me, keep that job as long as you can, then go from there.
Yeah, my advice to people when they're asking me how to go full time is, you should keep your job until it literally interferes with you being able to do the thing that you really want to do, right? And I think a lot of people kind of are like, oh, well, if I had 8 hours a day to just do this, then it'd be great. But it's like, well, you're not using the other time that you have effectively. Now, if you get to the point where it's you're working your 9 to 5 and you come home and you just can't fit everything that you're trying to do in a reasonable amount of time, then okay. And, the money is reflecting that. Then you can make a business decision and say, all right, is my time more valuable right here or where I'm working? And I think when you get to the point where it doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint for you to go to work, right? It's you feel okay, it's costing me this amount of money to go to work every day. Then I think is when you're ready to make that move. But a lot of people make the mistake of jumping too early, and it there's something to be. It's when you try to operate a business out of desperation, especially a creative one, it can really mess with you.
Yes.
And that's the last thing you want to happen.
Definitely.
So what's the future looking like for you?
Other than getting rid of this 9 to 5, I say just trying to branch out a whole lot more. I know I've been working with a lot of the past few years. I've been working with a lot of artists all over. But as far as trying to go places, I want to go out to L.A. and work at a couple of spots. Go out to New York and everything like that, because I know I have a lot of artists who wants me to come out there. And I'm like, hey, just we'll sit and chill for a week or two, just record, mix, all that. So just branch out a whole lot more. Another thing aside from the music, just trying to buy a house, and hopefully within the next year or two. Yeah, just keep expanding the brand.
Nice. So for those who want to work with you or who just, kind of want to keep up with what's going on with you, how can they find you?
Any of the social medias handles, Mix MIX Engineer, ENDINEER, Kid, and that's K, the number one, not an I, it's the number one, DD, and that's on Twitter, Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Brian Kid. You can look that up, and it has the mix engineer in between my names.
Okay.
That or mixengineerkid@gmail.com if you want to find me, work with me, have any questions, hit up that Gmail. Other than that, that'll be the most things you can find me on. And I do follow. If you follow me, I'll follow back. So definitely, if you have any questions,
Nice. So everyone make sure you follow Brian Kidd. He's at Mix Engineer Kid with the number one instead of the letter I in Kid on all social media. And again, I want to thank you for doing this interview and agreeing to speak with us in the audience. You offered really great tips, and I think cleared up a lot about the engineering process. So I'm grateful to you for that.
I appreciate that, man. Definitely do appreciate it.
And that's it for my amazing conversation with Brian Kidd. I'm so thankful that he took the time to speak with us. He gave some great tips on being confident, shooting your shot, not being afraid to take risks, especially when it comes to building a creative career. And that's what we all want to do. We all have music business dreams that we want to see come true. And I want you to keep dreaming those dreams, and I want you to make them reality. So if you stayed to listen to the end, thank you. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, leave a review, and tell a friend about us so we can come back even stronger week after week. Next week, we're talking to Cheryl Engelhardt. Now, Cheryl, I came across her through a blog post on CD Baby, and she's talking about how she made $40,000 from her email list with less than 2,000 subscribers on it. So I talked to her about all of that, about her tips for list building, how she got her start in the business, what her career trajectory has been like, and of course, how you guys can duplicate her success. So stick around. We'll be back next Wednesday, 6:30 a.m. Peace.